I call to order the City of Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals for October the 19th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Ballard. Burrell.
Here.
Clapper.
Here.
Throckmorton.
Here.
We have two sets of minutes to be approved this evening, those from September 21st, 2023, and from September 26th, 2023. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of minutes from September 21st, 2023 and September 26th, 2023 as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we have a vote, please.
Burrell.
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes.
Throckmorton. Yes. Ballard.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Any reports, resolutions, and communications?
No reports at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, I'm going to list the petitions that are continued to the November 16th meeting. Those are AA-1722 Joe Kemp Construction LLC and Blackwell Construction, Inc., V-32-23 Buckingham Properties LLC, and AA-36-23 Indiana Army National Guard. The petitions this evening on our docket are as follows. V-2823 Hoosier Commons LLC, CU-34-23 Beacon, Inc. and Gratis Development, AA-37-23 Keith and Karen Sweto, and AA-38-23 Joseph Davis. At this time, I would like to ask if the petitioners for Hoosier Commons LLC are present. They are not present. Are Keith and Karen Sweto present? Okay. Because those parties are not present, we are going to, do we need to, we don't need to.
Okay, so what you'll need to do, just for everyone who's watching, we have quorum issues for each petition that are different. And so we're trying to determine the order. We are required to put the petitions in based on the number that they were previously assigned. So we're trying to determine the order. The other thing you need to address is the continuation of the fourth petition. So you could vote to do that, and I'll go speak to Mr. Beggs, who's out in the hallway.
Oh, Mr. Beggs
Yep.
is out in the hallway. Okay. So, and that is the petitioner for the Hoosier Commons, I believe. Yeah, well, it sounds like the petitioner just arrived, who is the Hoosier Commons LLC person. Yeah, so we would move forward with that petition. Okay. Who is the staff person for Hoosier Commons LLC? Okay.
It's me, that's Gabriel Holbrow, zoning planner.
Thank you, Gabriel. I don't believe the petitioner is in the room quite yet, so
Well,
hang
hang tight.
on. I'm sorry, everybody. We're just waiting for this petitioner to make it into the room. Okay, so we will be hearing V-28-23, Hoosier Commons LLC. Staff report, please.
And I'm sorry, did you vote to continue AA 3823 to the next hearing?
Which one? The last one?
Yes.
AA 38-23? Oh, okay, okay. So, yes, we'll take a vote now to continue case AA-38-23, which is Joseph Davis. That's, am I correct? Okay, so that is a vote to continue that case to our November docket.
And I'll just say so you know, the administration is working with Mr. Davis and having a site visit next week. And so similarly to how the petition at Board of Public Works was continued, they have asked that we continue the petition here tonight so that that site visit can occur before those notices of violation are seen by the bodies.
Okay, okay. Okay, so can I have a motion, please?
Motion to continue AA-38-23, Joseph Davis, to November 16th.
Second.
Have a vote, please.
Clapper.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Okay. Could the meeting minutes reflect that Erica Walker is joining the board? Welcome, Erica. Erica is Nikki Farrell's alternate, who will be serving tonight. So because of quorum issues, I believe that there is a recommendation from staff.
Yes, okay. I'm sorry, everyone. This has been a roller coaster of emotions and organization. Because, to clarify, Ms. Clapper's firm has worked with our second petitioner for Beacon, so she will have to recuse herself for that. Mr. Throckmorton will have to leave at an earlier time than presumably the rest of you. So we are recommending to you that you amend the agenda so that Beacon can be heard first. The Willis Street petition was willing to do either. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you.
And agreed to swap that so that Beacon could have enough time with as many board members as possible tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So I will entertain a motion to change the order of our cases tonight to move Beacon and Gratis Development first.
I'll move that we move CU-34-23 to first in the order of hearing at tonight's meeting.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Can we have a vote, please?
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Walker. Yes. Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Clapper.
Abstain. Okay. So let the meetings reflect that Barry has recused herself, and I am now leaving the room.
Okay, and just while she's leaving, I just want to kind of go over the order of how we'll do things for those who've not been to a BZA meeting before. So we will have a staff report. The staff report will explain what the petition is about. Then we will be talking to the petitioners. They'll have an opportunity to speak for up to 20 minutes during this meeting. And then we will be hearing from the public. We'll make that available. There's a sign-up sheet that's out there. It may be being passed around, but you will be asked when it's your turn to come forward. For each person that comes forward to speak, we'll ask for you to provide your first and last name, and then we do a very basic swearing in. That is just a basic, do you swear to that the testimony you're going to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth. We do that for each person, and then you will have, as a public speaker, up to 5 minutes and 5 minutes only. That'll be the limit. I do want to make it a point that after the public comments are done, everything will return to the board for action. The board will make either comments or they will have questions. Those questions will go either to the petitioners directly or to the staff directly, but at that point there will be no more input from the public. So if you want to speak as a member of the public, please sign up. Please say what you would like during the 5 minutes that we have for you. And then please feel free to stay as long as the petition takes, and listen in. So that's the process for those who haven't been here before. So with that, the first petition is CU-34-23 Beacon Inc. Gratis Development, and if I could, may I please have a staff report? That's Eric, right? Is he on Zoom? There he is.
Oh, I can see you now. Hold on, just a sec. Why is it so quiet? Eric, we can't hear you, just a sec. Yeah. Can they hear us?
We can all hear each other on the Zoom, but for some reason you guys can't hear.
It's coming out of the, Eric, try it again. Can he hear us, John?
What's that?
You can hear us?
I can hear you guys in here, and we can hear each other on the Zoom. For some reason you guys can't hear.
We can't hear you.
Zoom.
Crud. Okay. Yeah, but we can't hear you, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know. I'm gonna log the big computer out and try to restart it, Eric. We basically can hear you behind us, me and Melissa, coming out of the tower. Okay, just a sec. I'm so sorry. All right. You wanna call the help desk? Okay. They're not there.
Yes, and I think there were some questions. So the sign-up sheet is on the podium right now. So please take a moment to go up and sign up if you want to. Just step to the podium and go ahead and sign in. When it's time for public comment, we'll just go in that order. That way, you won't have to line up and stand while you're waiting for the person in front of you to speak. You can do that while we're doing the staff report, so please just take a moment to do that. It'll make it a little easier when we get to that portion. Thank you. Again, the sign-up sheet is on the podium.
Eric, will you go ahead and try to speak again? Okay, hold on. Yeah, but did you leave a message? Yeah.
Eric, can you test really quick? That didn't work, thanks.
Recording in progress.
This is Eric, City of Bloomington, Planning and Transportation Department, doing an audio check.
Eric, go ahead again. Oh, I don't know if they can. Eric, can you hear me? No, because we want to share the other screen. Why not? Eric, can you hear me? Okay, so we need to fix the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I show you, so it's, the sound is coming out of the tower instead of whatever the system changed.
This is Eric with the City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation Department, just checking the audio for council chambers to see if anything can be heard within council chambers.
Okay, Erin, can you hear me?
But can he hear us?
I can hear council chambers, yes.
Okay, very good. So, with that, we are at the point in the meeting, Eric. Let's see. The previous item was unlimited technical difficulties, so we're done with that portion. We're going to go on to the staff report for the CU-34-23. Please proceed.
Excellent, and I will be cognitive of the time frame and try to move expeditiously here. So this is a request from Beacon for a property at 1201 West 3rd Street. The petitioner is requesting conditional use approval to allow supportive housing large use in the mixed use medium scale. This is to allow for a property that is zoned mixed use medium scale to be redeveloped by the petitioner for a series of social service uses. So the proposal would include a new building being constructed on the site. All of the existing buildings would be removed and parking areas would be removed to make way for a new 2-story, 45,000 square foot facility that would include a day center with a variety of uses and services, a 50-bed overnight shelter, 20 one-bed dwelling units that would serve as long-term housing, and then 5 work-to-live units for on-site staff and management. The petitioner has a lot of this information in their petitioner statement. I expect that they will expand on this further, so I will defer to them to better describe some of the services that will be offered in this facility. But in general, it ranges from a variety of social service uses to dwelling units located on the property. This use, supportive housing large, is listed as a conditional use in the mixed use medium scale district. So they are here tonight to request conditional use approval for this use. So with this, they are not requesting and we are not reviewing the site plan or elevations. However, it is important to kind of just briefly go through some of those details to get an idea of the scope of the project and the building and some of the features and amenities that will be provided on site. So as I mentioned, the petitioner is showing a 2-story building. There would be 1 drive cut on 3rd Street that is shown for on-site parking. Uses within the building would kind of span between dwelling units located on the second floor of the building, and then the ground floor would have the overnight shelter and some of the typical day-to-day operations and services that they will be providing, such as a day room, certain kitchen and service amenities, as well as some office space. And then, as I mentioned, the second floor would have the permanent supportive living apartments and the lived work units. So all of the on-site units would be only allowed for folks that are qualifying at the low and ultra low income levels. So the uses that are being proposed here certainly serve a very important needs for the community, something that has been looked at and stressed many times in our comprehensive plan as areas that need a lot of attention and guidance and support from both the community as well as from the private sector. So this is providing a much needed resource for our community, something that the comprehensive plan encourages in many aspects. So the elevations here that I'm showing are just the general kind of massing. These elevations will be more fine-tuned with the site plan approval and a plat that will be coming further down the line. The only thing that is being petitioned and heard tonight for the Board of Zoning Appeals is the conditional use aspect itself. So as is required, there are several aspects of the zoning code that require review. One of those are the general compliance criteria that look at compliance with the UDO regulations. So there are no variances that are expected with the proposed site plan. As I mentioned, that would be reviewed at a different level by the Plan Commission for the major site plan approval. But we are not expecting any variances or any deviations from any of those standards. We are not aware of any other applicable regulations that apply to this use. This is along 3rd Street that has water and sewer service available in there, so there are no difficulties with meeting utility service standards. And there are no prior approvals that would regulate this property or this use. So conditional uses have 4 sets of criteria that are required to be evaluated. One of those is consistency with the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned earlier, there are several aspects of the comprehensive plan that speak directly toward providing services to members of our community that are experiencing homelessness, as well as providing housing for some of the very low income levels of our citizens. So there are several goals and policies that stress the importance of this. So this particular project is meeting a lot of those goals and fulfilling a lot of the goals that are outlined in our comprehensive plan. And so it's certainly accomplishing and is consistent with our comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, the adequacy of adjacent public services and facilities is something that is evaluated with the conditional use approval. As I mentioned, it has direct access to 3rd Street. There is a sidewalk system that runs along the south side of 3rd Street, all the way from Walker Drive to the east to Patterson Drive to the west. There is a Bloomington Transit bus stop at 3rd and Patterson, a very short distance away. And this site is adequately served by existing public utilities, so we feel it does have good connectivity, but at the same time does have some separation from the neighborhood to the east. There is a cemetery to the north, a creek that runs along the west side of the property line. So these things help kind of set this property aside and give it the ability to function in an appropriate way without kind of impacting a lot of neighbors or residences. So this, what I was just mentioning, goes towards the 3rd criteria, minimizing and mitigating adverse impacts. So all of these adjacent things help separate this use, give it some seclusion, give it some privacy to be able to operate and fulfill their mission without having any adverse impacts on adjacent property. The petitioner did have a neighborhood meeting with the Greater Prospect Hill neighborhood about a week ago, and there were a lot of comments that were given of that at that meeting. A lot of those were very positive and supportive of this petition. Obviously, there were some concerns as well, but overall, the petition was well received by the neighborhood association, and so we do find that it meets the 3rd criteria. And then the 4th criteria for the conditional use is a phasing plan. This particular project would be constructed all at one time. So there is no phasing that is being proposed with this plan. So with that, we do recommend that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings that I've briefly kind of gone through and outlined in staff's report, and recommend approval of this conditional use request with the 2 conditions that are listed in staff's report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Do we have the petitioners here with us tonight? And if so, how many would like to speak? Just one? What's your name? Morris? Forrest Gilmore? Go ahead and step forward, please. And is the microphone on there at the podium? Say your name again for me there.
Forrest Gilmore.
Okay. Let me start with, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I just need an I do if...
I do, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just verbally. So 20 minutes, and I do want to stress, what you don't use in this initial presentation will be saved, and you will have the opportunity to use the remainder of your time if you would like to do so later on.
Excellent, thank you.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for hosting this. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name again is Reverend Forrest Gilmore, and I'm the Executive Director of Beacon, Inc. And I'm very excited to present to you the proposal for our new facility tonight. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce our team who will be available for questions later in the evening. I wanted to first recognize Dawn Gray, who is our architect with Spring Point Architects. And right next to her is Katie Stein from Smith Design Group. We have Jonathan Elke and Danielle Welsh-Massey, who's on Zoom with us from Gratis Development. And then we have Von Welsh and Jane Martin, who are the co-chairs of our campaign planning team. And again, these individuals will all be available for questions later on. We are presenting on behalf of Beacon, a locally born and based nonprofit, which is nearly 25 years old. Beacon is a homeless services and housing provider, best known for Shalom Center, our daytime resource center, Friends Place, our 40-bed overnight shelter for Monroe County residents, and now the only emergency shelter for women in our community, and Crawford Homes, a permanent supportive housing program for people experiencing long-term homelessness due to disabilities. Over a decade ago, one of our guests, Frank Crawford, passed away next to a dumpster behind the old Ponderosa restaurant, what is now the post office. And Frank bounced between nursing home care and the streets until he finally died. And that stirred in Beacon a desire to think deeply about our work. We realized we couldn't just invest in emergency services. We had to invest in solutions, and we chose at that time especially to invest in homes. Despite the housing market becoming more and more challenging every year, we've been one of Bloomington's leading providers of housing solutions ever since, building and growing our programs like Crawford Homes, which is named after and in honor of Frank Crawford. Rapid Rehousing, which provides housing support for working families to help them move into homes and shift into independence more quickly. Our Family Reunification Program, which helps reunite people in our community with their families in other communities. And our Homeless Prevention Program, which supports households at risk of eviction or utility shutoff. Beacon has become, in that time, the largest nonprofit housing provider in our city. And last year alone, we helped over 870 children and adults either avoid or move out of homelessness. And that brings us to today, where we are with the dreams of a new facility. The number one reason this new facility for Beacon is vital for our community is homes. This new facility will provide 25 new homes for people experiencing homelessness, 20 permanent supportive housing units for people with disabilities, like the ones that could have saved Frank Crawford's life, and 5 work exchange, work to live apartments for people to work on the site and in the neighborhood in exchange for housing. The second reason we feel like this facility is so vital is a substantive improvement, not so much in the quantity, but the quality of the services that we offer for people as they work to move into new homes. In addition to basic life essentials, this facility will emphasize health and employment. For employment, we will have the 5 work exchange apartments, as I mentioned. We will also have a training kitchen on site to teach guests and residents culinary skills. We'll have an employment center with job coaching and placement, resume, interview, and job stability support, computers, and more. We are also exploring work with the Parks Department to hire guests to help in park maintenance, perhaps starting with Rose Hill Cemetery and focusing very locally, a sacred space that we all value and seek to protect. And we're even considering a small day labor program where if neighbors need help mowing their lawn or shoveling their sidewalk, we could provide people to our neighbors that our neighbors can trust to go out and do the jobs for them. On the health side, HealthNet has already agreed to place a clinic on site, and we're also in talks with Centerstone to provide critical mental health services, plus Indiana Legal Services, the city police and fire departments, and more to support this site. All of this is not possible in our current location. I'm not sure it was ever the best idea to attempt to turn an old used furniture store into a resource center for people experiencing homelessness, but that's what we had to do at the time. And our current site is very small, just 1/3 of an acre, and it's also in a floodplain, which doesn't allow for any additional expansion. But we've learned a lot from our work there and in other facilities, both at Friends Place and also at Crawford Apartments. And one of the things we've learned is especially how to design a facility that will work so much better than what we've been able to do at this point. Better safety, better services, and better environment. So that has led us to 1201 West 3rd Street. We spent more than a year looking for properties that met code, were for sale, and could accommodate what we were trying to accomplish. We identified 3 possible properties in that search and explored all 3 properties seriously. One we found was just too small for what we wanted to do. Another was purchased by another, leaving us with one choice. No property is perfect, of course, but I do think this is an excellent one with what we hope to accomplish and who we hope to be. Our timeline is driven as we look forward, what's the deadlines that are before us. I think it's important for you to know that we have a contracted closing date from the seller, and we also have a $7 million grant from the state, which will significantly fund the facility and the new housing units especially. And both of those deadlines, to fulfill those obligations and avoid losing the property and that grant, we need to complete the planning process by the end of the year. So that just gives you a sense of the timing for where we are now with both our contract and the grant agreement. As we consider our movement, we're certainly aware that a facility like ours can have an impact on its surroundings. It's been our goal from the beginning to both create a facility to house services which are so desperately needed while having a positive impact on the neighborhood. That's very important to us, both to have a great facility that serves the guests that we so desperately need to support and need our support, while also being a positive influence on the neighborhood and having a good impact on the neighborhood. And as a part of that, we've engaged in a significant outreach campaign to get feedback on the plan, and the plans that you've seen have been heavily influenced by that outreach campaign, by getting feedback from community members, neighbors, government officials, et cetera. Up to this point, we have had one-on-one or small group meetings with over 60 residents, business owners, elected officials, and city staff, including the Prospect Hill and Near West Side Neighborhood Association leadership, 29 Prospect Hill residents and 3 Near West Side residents, 4 members of the City Council, 3 members of the County Council, 7 members of the city staff, 11 area businesses and the nearby MCCSC Academy, and numerous other community leaders in that outreach campaign. We presented at the October 2nd Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association meeting. We're meeting with over 20 residents that evening. We walked door to door to over 90 residents and businesses near the new property, walked door to door, knocking on doors and trying to speak with people directly to talk about the project and get their thoughts and get feedback from them and give them an opportunity to give us ideas. And we held a community meeting last week on October 10th, attended by more than 60 residents of the community of the area, at least 60. We didn't get a perfect count, but it was a large number of folks that filled the room. Should this project move forward, we will continue to engage. We don't consider that neighborhood engagement process that we've begun at this point to be done. We consider that an ongoing process, which we will continue. And one of the most important things that we're committing to is forming a neighborhood advisory committee with local residents, business owners, and government officials. And we'll have that neighborhood advisory committee working regularly with us. So not only to help us with the ongoing design of the project, but also to help us once the project is operational, to continue to create good relations with the neighbors and make sure that we are a positive force in the neighborhood. So with that all said, I surrender the rest of the time for now.
Yeah. So thank you. You'll have 10 minutes left. We will hear from the public coming up here shortly. And then after that point, take notes because you can use the rest of your 10 minutes to follow
Absolutely.
up with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we've heard from the staff, we've heard from the petitioners to the board for any questions or comments or questions on procedure before moving forward. Do we have any? Okay. Seeing none, then we will move on to comment from the public. Jackie, would you like me to take that list and call them forward, or would you like to call them forward?
I think it's okay if you just want to line up and come up and speak.
Well, I didn't want to have them stand up
Oh, you don't want to
waiting.
have them standing, so
I have the sheet. I know it's uncomfortable to just stand there. But just
Yep.
call the first
I
one.
think I can do it, sure. Joseph Davis.
Joseph Davis, come forward. Please state your name for the record. State.
Hello, my name is Joseph Davis.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have up to 5 minutes, please.
I reside at 530 South Washington Street, just 1 block from the existing Shalom Center. I totally support the creation of this campus. It makes sense in many ways. Services will be more centrally located, all in one building or all on one campus. Right now, it's a scattering of regular services for those who are unhoused and just trying to live their life as they're best able. Because my sidewalk is en route to the existing Shalom Center, I see every day the unhoused people walking by. Many of them are my friends. If they're going from the library to Shalom or back, they pass by on my sidewalk. It's, typically people call the alleyway between Walnut and Washington the unhoused highway, or more derogatorily, the homeless highway. But just because of the mere fact that Stahl Furniture's building blocks that alleyway, all of the people seeking services at Shalom pass by on my sidewalk. And as I say, the majority of the individuals are very kind, very warm, but there are some side impacts that our neighborhood feels. And I myself am the only owner-occupier on my entire block face. Everything is low-quality housing. Mostly around my neighborhood, where Shalom currently exists, is low-quality student housing. And these leasees do not pick up the detritus, the trash, the cigarette package wrappers, the leftover meals from Shalom that are on carry-out styrofoam that are regularly deposited, the clothing that lies along the sidewalk and in the street. Okay, these are real impacts, and these impacts are going to continue. So therefore, there must be more money made available to the neighborhoods who are going to be most distinctly impacted by just this. I mean, people need services, but there are people on these paths that just deliberately, not deliberately, unknowingly trash the neighborhoods. So each and every one of these neighborhoods is going to need to have more services, and the same with the cemetery. There's going to need to be more oversight on sanitation to pick up this garbage. I recently learned there's a distinction between the term garbage and trash in Title VI of Bloomington's Municipal Code. So what we're talking about is garbage. And just because it's a cigarette butt, just because it's a cellophane wrapper, just because it's a carry-out styrofoam container, does not mean that there shouldn't be some city entity picking up where there is currently lack in the neighborhoods that are most directly impacted by the placement of these services. And again, I totally support Beacon's vision. I think that it makes so much sense given the rarity of a property that could house so many surfaces on one campus. And it also, too, there are some natural buffers there. There's Rose Hill Cemetery. There is everything, to the west. I think that this is going to engender more opportunity for community weaving, where everyone in the neighborhood and those unhoused will feel supported. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jackie, who's the next person?
Teresa Harper and Amy Kendall is on deck.
Okay. Teresa, if you'd step forward, state your first and last name.
Teresa Harper.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I so affirm.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm a Bloomington resident, and I wanted to share with you why I am in favor of this project. This isn't novel. The Veterans Administration has provided housing in the Housing First program because 1 out of every 4 or 5 homeless people are veterans that served in a war between World War II and the present time. The Veterans Administration at first gave services, and they began to see it was not working. And the reason why it was not working is that people aren't going to meaningfully engage in services when they're concerned about where they're going to sleep or if their bellies will be full. Consequently, around 2010, maybe a little earlier than that, they came up with this idea of housing first. And in fact, Beacon is a housing first organization. The idea is to give housing, and then after that, people can engage in services and do so meaningfully. The Veterans Administration doesn't just say, hey, that sounds like a good idea, let's do it. They will only engage in projects if it's evidence-based, if it's already proven to work. And then once that program is put in place, they have to keep up with that data. They have to continue to show how it works. Something that's very noteworthy is that the data that has been collected shows that a person who has housing first is 4 to 5 more times likely to stay sober. That's really kind of shocking to me, is that 4 to 5 times is a pretty good bet. When I take a look at the services that are going to be provided by Beacon and where it is, I think of the Veterans Administration. I think how Beacon's program mirrors something that has been quite successful with the VA. And I think that the same thing is quite possible here. There is a grant, there is an active board, there are active supporters. I don't know if I've ever heard of such outreach by an organization in a neighborhood. When I think about that, and when I think about the grants, and I think about the board, I think that there is a good possibility that this is a substantial, positive step to deal with our homeless population. And you're the beginning. You're the beginning. So I would ask that you give this consideration and approve this petition. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie?
We have Amy Kendall with Tracy Jovanovic on deck.
Amy, state your first and last name, please.
Amy Kendall.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am the development director at Beacon. I'm also a resident of the Prospect Hill neighborhood. And I'm in support of this project for a number of reasons, but tonight I want to talk about the human reason that I'm in support of this project. Forrest mentioned this, but in 2022, Beacon housed or prevented homelessness for 870 people. And one such person who we housed this year, his name is Robert. So just a little bit about Robert is that he's a caring father. He was a single parent and raised 4 of his children while providing child support for the other 2. He was a kitchen manager at Denny's, and I don't know if you remember when Denny's closed, but it was very sudden. And he had no notice of when he was going to lose his job. And to make matters worse, his rent went from $1,200 to $1,600 a month. So at the age of 54, Robert was faced with homelessness for the first time in his life. Also, his son is living with him because his son suffers from schizophrenia. So Robert and his son, in February of 2023, had to move into their truck. And that is where they had to live until Robert heard about Beacon and came into the Shalom Center in April. He saw a caseworker, filled out the paperwork, got enrolled in our Rapid Rehousing program, which is a program that helps people who haven't been experiencing homelessness for as long. It helps them rapidly get back into housing. So February was when he became homeless. April was when he came to Shalom. By June, he was back in an apartment of his own with his son. And they are still living there. Beacon helped him with the application process and helped him with his bills while he's getting on his feet and getting financially stable. He now has a job, is caught up on his bills. Beacon's still helping him, but he is becoming financially independent now. And I do just want to say, when I spoke with him, he told me this, and this is something he said word for word. So if I can just read this. You're supporting angels on the shoulders of low-income people. Beacon has stayed committed to trying to help all the individuals that come across their path. And to me, that's the greatest assistance you can probably get in this city if you are looking for a place to restart your life. So again, thank you for hearing about Beacon's project tonight. I hope that this shows you a little bit more of what we do and what we're trying to keep doing with our project.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Tracy Jovanovic and Danielle Jordan is next.
Tracy, your first and last name, please.
Tracy Ivanovich.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you for that. You have up to 5 minutes.
All right. I'm a Bloomerang who moved back here 4.5 years ago with my family. My family has lived here for over 40 years, and my stepmom was born and raised here. Her grandparents owned Johnson's Creamery, so we have a pretty deep roots here in Bloomington. Over the past 4 years, I've been a CASA and have seen some of the services needed and provided for our unhoused population here in Bloomington. I've also seen some of the gaps that exist out there, and I believe Beacon's integrated approach with service providers is going to help shore up some of those gaps. Specifically, as a CASA, we want to make sure that parents have the ability to, and are provided the necessary mental therapy to reunite and reunify with the kids. They have to do drug screenings, they have to show improvement, and most of our parents don't have transportation. So to get to the drug testing, to get to a job and have employment, to get to the mental therapy, to go do the kids' supervised visits, it is a lot of time. It is incredibly challenging for them to be able to make the time to do all of this. By having an integrated facility, that is going to make it much more efficient and set them up for a lot more success so that they can be reunified. It gives them hope rather than despair. The supportive housing effort is really a lifeline to help many community members, and most importantly, it helps our community with a more holistic approach to improving the unhoused population's quality of life to get back on the right track with their families and in society. But not only is it a holistic approach for the unhoused citizens of our community, it's also a holistic approach from the community to provide a dignified approach to, for reentry into Bloomington. And on that second point, I wanted to speak to the fact that we also need, Beacon can't do it alone. We also need to make sure that we have the capability within the community to support outside of the facility. So have we provided the funding that's necessary for the police and fire departments and the DRO officers who are out there helping? Are we giving them the tools that they need? Our citizens, we're going to need citizens to help supplement the funding efforts that are out there. $7 million is a lot, it's fantastic. It's not going to be enough, so we're going to need community engagement from that standpoint. And we're also going to need our citizens to help provide constructive feedback when they recognize challenges or see issues that arise. And then lastly, we need to make sure that the university, the county, local businesses will all partner with the city, Heading Home, the United Way Group, and the other agencies of that sort to make sure that we're all providing solution-oriented approaches to bolster the improvement that this town is capable of providing. So it's not going to be easy. It's not easy now. But the holistic approach that Beacon is proposing is a great step in the right direction, and it provides an excellent framework to move Bloomington in the right direction of providing a dignified path for our unhoused citizens to reenter the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next,
Next, and Nate Howell is after her.
Danielle, just give us your first and last name.
Hi, my name is Danielle Sorden with an S.
And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you for that. You have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. I'm the Director of Housing First Programs for Beacon, which means I run the Crawford Homes program. We have the 60 units at Crawford Apartments on the south side, and then we're supposed to have about 40 units in scattered sites all around the community. We will be using 20 units of funding from the scattered sites for the new proposed project because we are unable to spend about half of that funding right now. That's because we can't find landlords who will work with our clients and who have units that are affordable. We are restricted to affordability guidelines given to us by HUD. So for instance, a one-bedroom apartment, which is about the size that we work with, almost all of our units are one bedroom, we can pay up to $970 a month for that. You have to subtract a $100 approximately utility allowance from that, which means that we could actually only pay about $850 a month in rent. The average one-bedroom apartment in Bloomington right now is $1,200 to $1,500 a month. So we have funds that are going unused and people that are staying unhoused because we don't have anywhere that we can rent for them. So these 20 units are very necessary to our community. They're necessary for us to keep the level of funding that we have. And they will provide a site that has even more security than Crawford Apartments has. The entrance will be controlled day and night. So it will increase the security and the safety of the residents there and of the neighborhood. Speaking of the neighborhood, I've been a resident of it for 22 years, and I strongly support and have no reservations about having this project 2 blocks from my house. And it also gives me a very vested interest in helping the clients that I work with to be good neighbors to the community. The other reason I support it is because that site right now is really ugly. So it would be nice to have a big, beautiful building and some extra trees planted and bushes and stuff like that instead of that big Weddle Brothers construction warehouse. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Nate Howell and Emily Hewitt on deck.
Nate, step forward and give us your first and last name, please.
My name is Nate Howell.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
All right. Hello, all. Like I just said, my name is Nate Howell. I am currently employed as the team lead for Beacon's Permanent Supportive Housing Program, which is also called the Crawford Homes Program. And I've been involved with Beacon in various capacities for about 7 years now. I can't even begin to express how much the missions and activities of Beacon mean to me personally, and how my involvement with Beacon has enriched my life and life's purpose. But all that pales in comparison to what Beacon means for some of our clients, the majority of who are among the most vulnerable and in-need members of the Bloomington community. For them, many of our services are literally life-sustaining and life-saving. I've lost track of the number of times that a client has told me some variation of, I would not be able to survive without your help, or I cannot make it out on the streets without help. While statements of these are undoubtedly important and impactful, they are also admittedly anecdotal and not based in statistical data. So, a statistic that is based in data is that the average age of death for a person experiencing homelessness in the United States is about 47 years old. That's approximately 30 years knocked off a person's lifespan due primarily to the chronic stressors associated with homelessness. When you consider that a significant portion of those that we, Beacon, serve are over age 47, you can get an idea of just how critical Beacon services are to those which rely upon them. Many of those we serve on a daily basis should statistically no longer be with us, yet many are not just surviving, but also thriving. Just a few of our many services provided, but among the most essential are food, shelter, and assistance with access to health care. In the year 2022 alone, Beacon served over 65,000 prepared meals, provided over 14,000 nights of temporary shelter, and helped house 870 people. Without our services, many of the community members which we serve would be hard-pressed or even completely unable to access even the most basic needs in order to sustain their lives. After working for 7 years with those who have experienced homelessness, I feel like I can provide some relatively accurate and relevant perspectives. Is my job always fun, easy, or without difficulty and stress? Absolutely not. I see my clients struggle, make mistakes, and experience hardships on a daily basis, but don't we all? Isn't that part of being imperfect human beings in this world? But do the benefits of providing and expanding Beacon services to those in need outweigh the detriments? Absolutely, 100%. If we stand idly by or choose not to help, the alternative is to watch many of our community members struggle, suffer, and experience premature injuries, illnesses, and deaths, when there is something we can do to help ease these burdens and improve their lives. So to summarize, in a community and our country with so many resources, opportunities, and so much potential, I feel that it is our responsibility and privilege as human beings and fellow community members to all do our part to help those who may be less fortunate than we are. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Emily, I think it's Hewitt, and then Lindsay Dominguez.
Give us your first and last name, please.
Emily Hewitt.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Up to 5 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the administrator for Beacon. I agree with all of the previous support that's been said, but I did want to take this opportunity to read a poem that really touched my heart by one of our clients. It's called From the Heart. There is just so much confusion, not knowing where to go. I use my illusion to hide the tears that show. Feeling all the pain, I smile, but you know that something ain't right. As I walk out of sight, taking my loneliness into the night. From the heart I grieve. Can your mind conceive of the loneliness inside me? In the night I walk, on the street I talk. Can you break the chain and make me free? In my homelessness, no one seems to relate. A broken loneliness cries in silence. In a crowd all alone, my heart aches and it groans. In this pointlessness, I wander in my fate. I look for a way to make it through today. I have so much to say. Come on, give me some play. Now let me have some time to put the pain in rhyme. I have a song to sing of loneliness that stings. In a dream, I realize all the pain as I rise against those who deny, who do not want me to try. But my hope is not dry, even though I still cry. In my homelessness, I roam, walk in love for shalom, because everyone deserves a home. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Lindsay Dominguez and then Mary Morgan.
Lindsay, give us your first and last name, please.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Dominguez.
And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
Good evening. I appreciate the chance to speak. As I said, my name is Lindsay Dominguez, and I am the program director of Beacon's Friends Place Shelter. I apologize if I get a little emotional. I'm a little hormonal. I'd like to share with you a little about what we do and why it is vital to our community that Beacon have the opportunity to grow and continue to shelter people in a new building. Currently, Friends Place has 40 beds, and we're full every night. But Friends Place is more than just a warm bed for these guests to sleep in. We're often their only direct connection to other area services and to future housing. Friends Place is housing focused, so all of our people that stay with us are working on attaining future housing that will be stable and long-term for them. Each guest meets with our case manager weekly, and they build the plan together. He's amazing at meeting people where they are, whether that's personally or financially, mental or physical health-wise, and really creating an individualized plan that eventually leads to housing. In 2022, 48 individuals moved from Friends Place into stable housing situations. And I would like to also read a poem by one of our current guests that I think it really captures how they feel about Beacon and then how we as a staff feel about it as well. This is called This Place. We all gather at this place, no matter your color or your race, where they don't judge you or discriminate for how you are or how you ain't. Where not everything you display or say is a mistake or a reason to look at you in a different way. And even though they may not know why you can't have a place to call home, they will always show sorry, her writing is they will always show concern until you're able to stand firm on your own once again. And with that, I I would like to tell you that I personally asked every person in our shelter whether they would like a new building, and they would. And also shared that the author of this poem moves into her new home on the 1st. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Mary Morgan and then Lindsay Moeller. And just so
Mary-
you know, for after this list, there are a few on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you. Mary, your first and last name, please?
Mary Morgan.
And do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'm Mary Morgan. I'm director of Heading Home of South Central Indiana. We're a relatively new initiative that was created to really drive long-term systemic changes that will strengthen housing security in this region. Beacon has been an important partner in this work because not only do they provide direct services, but they are also working on some of these longer-term solutions. I think it's fantastic. You've heard the need for housing, and especially permanent supportive housing. I think it's fantastic that their new facility will include this. The design is thoughtful. Gratis Development is a well-respected statewide entity in this space. So the plans are really very thoughtful, much needed, and will be a fantastic improvement over their current facilities. And I would urge you to support this petition. Thanks.
Thank you. We have one more in chambers?
Three more, Lindsay Moeller, and up next after her is Melanie Vesledge.
Lindsay, your first and last name, please?
Lindsay, excuse me, Lindsay Muller?
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm a Prospect Hill resident, and while I am in support of the vision that Beacon has, I'm not in the favor of the location specifically. As a resident that previously lived across the street from the Building and Trades Park, I saw a lot of drug deals, violence, people sharpening machetes on playground slides, public nudity. While I understand there are a lot of people, there's a lot of demonstrations of people that just need a leg up. They're very good people. There are a lot of people that are in their rock bottom. It seems like there's a lot of wonderful efforts that Beacon and its staff provides for sure. Not all with mental illness or strong addiction issues can escape the grip of their disease very easily, and it's obviously a national issue because it's a problem everywhere. It's not hard to see that the blocks surrounding the Shalom Center are struggling with abandoned buildings, some that are burned, and while I've fixed up now 2 houses in our neighborhood, I'm concerned that all of the strides that have been made in our neighborhood with a lot of the deteriorating houses might turn back the other way again, and that the neighborhood might in time become less desirable. I do not have any children of my own, but one neighbor did bring up concerns of students that go to the academy, and that her son used to go there and would walk directly in front of this proposed site to go downtown after school and whatnot. I used to be a young college-age female myself, and another concern that I kind of have would be a lot of the young ladies that would walk on 3rd Street also in front of the proposed site late at night or early in the morning on a run or whatnot. And if there's any consideration for these more vulnerable groups, if there is maybe a sex offender that's going to be residing in the facility. I do appreciate Beacon's meetings with my fellow neighbors and myself. Forrest has been great as far as explaining everything in detail and taking all of our concerns into consideration. He has proposed a lot of other ideas to combat more or less our concerns of things flowing over into the neighborhood, which again, I'm very appreciative of. I am skeptical though, however, that a lot of these things will not change or improve the potential drug activity and violence that will maybe flow into the cemetery and back into the park. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have, Melanie Vesledge, and then Daniel Moeller is the last name we have on the list currently.
Thank you. Melanie, your first and last name, please?
Sure. Melanie Vesledge.
And do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Like I said, my name is Melanie Veslage, and I am a resident of Bloomington, and I'm here to support the conditional use approval for Beacon. Much of what I wanted to say has already been reiterated with earlier speakers tonight. Beacon provides such an essential service for our community. By approving this conditional use will allow for more enhanced capacity for Beacon to more effectively provide essential services and collaborate with other community organizations for our really most vulnerable community members. Permanent supportive housing, it literally saves lives. The services that are provided at the day shelter presently, along with services that can be provided in a building as proposed in this petition, will further the capacity for Beacon and the community partners to literally save lives and support our most vulnerable community members. Since coming to Bloomington and graduating from IU, I've worked in a number of case management or adjacent roles. And I would say that one of the major service providers that my clients worked with were through Beacon. The staff there have been incredible. They've been able to help at any level of housing instability, working with people literally on the streets, places not meant for human habitation, just building really strong relationships and trust. And it can take a lot for people who have been really hurt by systems to trust someone. And Beacon staff are some of the most trusted, caring, steadfast, and supportive folks that I've ever worked with. They're an essential and powerful force in working collaboratively to ensure health, dignity, respect, and safety of our unhoused neighbors. There's been so much time and energy that's been put into hearing the community concerns, the needs, the questions by Forrest and the team. And I think that this really speaks to the energy that will continue as this project moves forward to be both good neighbors for the folks that are utilizing services as well as the people that are in the surrounding neighborhoods. So I think this project will have substantial positive impact on our community, and I hope that you vote in favor. Thank you for your time.
We have Daniel Mueller, and then Emily Pike will be after that.
Daniel, if you will, give us your first and last name, please.
Hi, Daniel Mueller.
Do you affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I sure do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
As you heard, my wife Lindsay just spoke. We are husband and wife. We had lived across directly from Building and Trades Park, so we have a pretty unique experience compared to, I would say, most people within our neighborhood or even city being directly across from a core neighborhood park. As we said, we previously had lived there. About 8 years ago, we had moved and found a nice house, decided to fix it up, spent a lot of money, loved it, as most people do that live in our neighborhood. We had seen some great things. We had seen people bringing the unhoused food. We've seen multiple preachers praying. But there's also was a lot of horrible, horrible things that we have seen, sleepless nights. A lot of anonymous phone calls to the police department were from us. I'm not saying that these are the people that will be residing within Beacon. As Lindsay said, I didn't know a whole lot about Beacon as a whole. I became very impressed. I think the plan is great. I think Forrest was great. He did sit down and listen to a lot of people individually. Going back to the parks, last year, I believe the entire summer, our park bathroom was not able to be open due to vandalism or fear of it. Butler Park had thousands of dollars, to my knowledge, of damage. This past summer, Building and Trades had one bathroom open and one closed at all time for the possibility of vandalism that the other one would be opened. Throughout the years, going back, I had become the Building and Trades Park Ambassador. Not sure if, I had said that. And due to the concerns that we've had, when we moved there was no lighting, no fencing. People were able to hide things under the ramps. We had seen police sprint through the park chasing after people. As Lindsay said, the machete was a pretty frightening sight. So the city had worked great with us. We had a fence to decrease that flow of quick drug deals in and out of the park. Unfortunately, you could still find needles, which I had picked up pretty often. The lighting, we've had trees cut. We had, like I said, lighting. Unfortunately, lots of lighting was vandalized to where now there's a bright spotlight, which neighbors hate, but it's the only way to keep safety. Going to my concerns of the cemetery, there is a billion different hiding spots, dark places, trees, all along directly across from the building site. And although there is no drug use allowed within Beacon's facilities, which is great, it will be dispersed throughout the neighborhood, throughout the cemetery, dark alleys, and that's my main concern is safety. In a private conversation with Forrest, he did mention that his fears that building and trades would become Seminary Square, because if there is no more Shalom, Seminary Square will not be the main hub of probably hangout for that population, that building and trades would be that. Our neighborhood has made a huge improvement with restoring headstones. More cemetery tours are happening. It's considered a city park, and I'm fearful that we will not be able to walk our dogs there. Every day you'll see people walking the cemetery, well paved now. There is no lighting. There is about a mile, I don't know, but the perimeter. There is large bushes, once again, with hiding places. So once again, I'm supportive of the mission. I think it's great. The design's fantastic. Is the location great? I'm fearful we're trading one Seminary City Park for two much larger areas that would not be able to be controlled. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I believe we have one more person from...
Yeah, one more in chambers thus far, Emily Pike.
State your first and last name.
Hi, I'm Emily Pike.
And do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Emily Pike. This is Bert, and this is Lainey, and we're here to speak in favor of Beacon's variance. I live in the county but work in the city, and I've had the privilege of working in the social service industry here for 12 years. And one of the things that I know is that we desperately need housing in our community. And in particular, we need it for our lowest income community members. We know that housing is the thing that does make a difference in terms of having fewer people outdoors. It makes a difference in terms of having fewer people arrested and fewer people in our emergency departments. In the long run, it's a more cost-efficient way to help people. It's also a more humane way to help people. And Beacon does all of those things, and that's what our community needs. I've also had the privilege of working closely with Beacon, and I know that they have proven success at housing projects like this. They were the first ones in our community to do it, and one of the first ones in the state of Indiana to do it. In fact, their programs are ones that other programs in the rest of the states have learned from. And so we know that they're going to do it well. I also am fortunate to know a lot of the leaders at Beacon. And I know that a lot of thoughtful planning has gone into this, and I know that they're very eager to listen to the neighborhood and make changes that would be to benefit the neighborhood. And so I think we can trust Beacon to do this in a way that is responsible and that is taking into consideration everyone's needs. In the long run, though, what our community needs if we want to have fewer people in the park is more people who have a home to go to, so they don't have to be in the park. And that's at its heart what we're talking about here, is having a place for all those folks to go. It's really hard for us as a community to keep listing more and more places where people can't sleep if we don't have a place where they can sleep. And so building some more places where they can sleep, to me, seems like a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there anyone else on the list?
I have 4 for Zoom. No one
4
else
for
in
Zoom. Is there
person.
anyone else in chambers from the public who would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Let's go to Zoom. Who's the first one?
Okay, Chuck Heinzelman?
Chuck, are you there?
I am.
Say your first and last name.
Charles Heinzelman.
Charles, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name is Charles Heinzelman. I own property at 1105 and 1107 West 3rd Street, so I'm a close neighbor to the proposed site. I just wanted to offer my support for the Beacon proposed project. I think it's an appropriate land use for that site. And as a close neighbor, I would welcome the Beacon project to the neighborhood. I think it's desperately needed within the city of Bloomington, and really can't add anything more than the other speakers have said with regards to the quality of the Beacon services. So again, I'd just like to speak in support of the conditional use. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Next, we have Tori.
Tori, are you there?
Hi, yes. Can you hear
Give me your first and last name, please.
Yes, Tori Crow.
Tori, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you have up to 5 minutes, Tori.
Thank you. And thank you for hearing what we have to say. Again, my name is Tori Crow, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Beacon. And what I would like to say in support of this project is a story that I think will highlight the importance of having services all inside one location. Last year, we had that horrific cold spell and dangerously low conditions. The wind chill was awful. And one of our regular guests developed frostbite. And he developed frostbite on all 10 of his fingers. Every day he would come in, they would become these waxy, large, bulbous fingertips, eventually turning black. Because he had to leave Shalom Center when we closed, and then leave where he was staying overnight to come when we opened, he was constantly exposing his hands to those incredibly dangerous winds. And some of the ways that he described it was feeling like he was walking through hell. He said the pain was the worst thing he'd ever felt, that he was a veteran and he had seen some things, but this was the absolute worst experience that he had. If we were to have a building where our day shelter was open and then one side of the building closed and the overnight shelter open inside that same building, someone in his situation would not have to have those frostbitten fingers exposed to winds and damp and cold. And I just think if we would have had this building this winter, what a difference it would have made for that gentleman. And I think that that is just one of the many examples as to how containing all of the services that we can offer into one location is going to benefit the people that we see daily. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tori. Who do we have next, Jackie?
Next, we have Margaret Van Shake.
Margaret, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Say your first and your last name, please.
It's Margaret Van Shike.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for opening this space up for public comment. Like I said, my name is Margaret Van Shike, and I am actually a direct service provider with HealthNet and our Homeless Initiative program. I work for a newly formed team in Bloomington. So today I want to again echo everyone who has been in support of this proposed site, and then just add my perspective as a community partner. We are a newly formed street medicine team, and our medical providers and myself and our other case managers are partnering with Beacon to provide medical care to our folks experiencing homelessness. At the moment, we are not really able to have a clinic at Shalom Center just because it doesn't allow for a clinic space. So part of what we are aiming to do is at this new site, we're partnering to have a clinic. Obviously, we know healthcare is a human right, and it is unfortunate that at this moment we are not able to have this clinic at Shalom because it is such a major hub for our clients. So I can't overstate how in support I am of this project. And one of those reasons, in addition to all the ones that have already been established, is a clinic space for our folks to get quality medical care in a space that they're safe and with people that they trust and that they love and that they know will not judge them and will only be there to help and support them. So that is one of the many reasons I support this. Another one is that I am actually also, you can't tell, but I am also a college-age female who lives in Prospect Hill on West 3rd Street, right down the street, and I have no qualms, no issues whatsoever with the space being down the street from where I live. I know most of the folks in the community, and I don't feel threatened and I don't feel nervous, and I would never. So I just want to put that perspective in as a Prospect Hill resident as well. And yeah, that is all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Hannah Gorman. You should be able to unmute, Hannah.
Hannah, are you there?
Yes, hi.
And Hannah, will you please say your first and last name?
Yes, Hannah Gorman.
And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I am in favor of this proposal. I personally think it's a great location. It's near a lot of resources that folks would be using. And I do also know a lot of the folks experiencing homelessness. And last year I lived near Shalom, and right now I live where this proposed place would be, and I didn't have any issues. I understand that some people may have had issues, but last year I didn't have any issues actually, and I knew a lot of people. So I am in favor of this place now because I live near there, and I still think it'd be great. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, who else do we have?
I don't have anyone else on Zoom, I don't think. If you are on Zoom and you would like to speak, you can send a message to me or the group and or raise your virtual hand.
We'll wait a moment. And as we wait, do you see anyone, Jackie?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing on Zoom.
So that will conclude the public comment portion of this hearing. What we will do next is we'll go back to the remaining 10 minutes that can be given to the petitioner, and I do want to explain that you have up to 10 minutes for continued comments. The 10 minutes you have do not apply to any questions that we have as a board later, so you have up to the 10 minutes to use now if you would like. Thank you. And then if you do have anyone that you want on your team called forward, if they have not yet been sworn in, I'll just need to swear them in before they comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity. And I also want to thank the people who spoke tonight and the many neighborhood community members that have spoken, and particularly those who have told us their concerns, Nate and Lindsay especially, and others who've told us, you know, what they're worried about and what their concerns are, because I think that's how we get better and how we do our best work is by hearing everything. And as you can imagine, us doing the work that we've been doing for a long time, we've learned a lot in that time, and one of the things we've learned is how to start from scratch with a space to really kind of make sure that it mitigates some of these concerns that we know can be associated with homeless shelters and homeless services. And among those things that we've done so far is just in the design, it will be extensively fenced with aesthetic fencing as opposed to chain link fencing, which is horrible looking, and with good lighting. We've also created specifically a westward opening in the building so that it'll direct, hopefully, traffic more towards the west as opposed to the east where the neighborhood primarily resides. And we also have a front entry design that is very unique in that it creates exclusive access to the center, and so people can't get into the property without without going through the front door. Which I think will help significantly with some of the challenges we have at Shalom, where people hang around and hover around the site to kind of, if you will, take advantage the facility after they've shown that their behavior is not acceptable for the type of work that we're trying to do with people. We, based on very specifically from feedback on the community, we've made our outdoor space, and there's going to be an outdoor space in the back. We've made that quite a bit larger and plan to landscape that, so it has a pleasant feel and can mimic some of the benefits of why people stay in the parks and why they go to the parks. And that's directly from community feedback. This location is actually farther from Building and Trades than we are now at the Shalom Center, which is interesting. We're actually further away from that park. We don't, of course, know exactly what will happen and changes in the kind of the dynamic, but we believe that much of the traffic that would go through that neighborhood now and the Prospect Hill neighborhood will actually not go, because a lot of that is travel between Shalom Center and Wheeler. And by being where we are now, we think we'll limit a lot more of that travel into town. We're very committed to the protection of Rose Hill Cemetery, and similarly with Bryan Park, those are really important. That was expressed very clearly that those are safe spaces and continue to be safe and sacred spaces for people in the community. And so we will work heavily with the city to ensure safety in those spaces. And we also had an extensive conversations with the police chief. And one of the ideas that emerged out of that is actually having a site, a space on site, a room on site for downtown resource officers to work out of the facility, which I think is another really significant advance in the way that we do work and the safety that we can create both in the facility and outside of the facility and around the facility. And then last but not least, and this is, I think, a true game changer, we're going to have 5 work exchange units, live-to-work units on site where we'll have people there 24/7 around the facility, and they'll not only contribute to the property but to the neighborhood with litter and trash, and also just responsiveness to the neighborhood as potential issues arise. We are very aware that this issue and the challenges that can sometimes come with homeless services, we're very aware that Beacon can do a lot to mitigate some of those challenges, and we've done a lot to try and do that as we approach this project. We're also aware that this is a community challenge, and we're going to need the community as a whole to really take that kind of challenge seriously and take it to another level. It's our opinion that it's incredibly important. These services are so important in our community, and we have to figure out as a community how to both have these services and have them in a way that is a positive impact on our neighbors as opposed to a negative or challenging impact on our neighbors. And we are very committed to that, and I do think that that a significant portion of the leadership in our community moving forward is also very committed to that. So we do hope that we can create a facility that is really not only a blessing to our clients, but to the community as a whole.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're now to the board back to the board for any comments or questions to the staff or the petitioner. And certainly the chair would entertain a motion as well. Do we have we'll start, any questions from the board to staff or petitioner?
Yeah, just a quick question to the petitioner. I really appreciate the thoroughness. It seems like a very holistic approach to the project and what you're doing.
Forrest, could you step?
But in terms of, you mentioned the neighborhood advisory committee that you've put together, which I think is absolutely integral in this process, it seems. Will that be something that will stay in existence as the project evolves?
That's the intent, yeah. Okay. We've done this once before. We were a participant in it. It was run by the ownership of the time of Crawford Apartments by Life Designs And we did that at that point when that first project was open, and it continued until people got bored with attending because it became a point where it wasn't an issue anymore. And so, so we will have it as long as the neighborhood wants it and values it and thinks it's important to continue to have. And I'm actually really excited about that because some of the conversations we've had with the neighbors is not only how do we partner together to create a safe neighborhood, but how do we partner to work on this space and create beauty there? There's this wonderful stream there. There's some green space in the back. What can we do with that space and kind of really reclaim some of that land that is lovely and this beautiful stream there? So that's one of the things I'm most excited about this is just the potential for partnership.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for the approval of CU-34-23 with the following conditions. Number one, the conditional use approval is limited to a facility with 50-bed overnight shelter, 20 dwelling units, and 5 work-to-live units for on-site staff. And number two, the overall design of the building shall be consistent with submitted elevations in regards to the number of stories and size.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion from the board? If not, please call a roll. Again, the yes vote is to approve the conditional use. A no is to deny.
I'll just make a quick comment before the vote. I really do think, this is a very large undertaking. I mean, the showing here, sometimes we only get a few people in these meetings. So the show of the number of you out there obviously shows the impact of this project, the importance of it. But I do definitely hope to move this forward that the concerns are continued to be addressed by the members, the individuals of the neighborhoods, surrounding areas, and how that'll be impacted. I think that's a really, crucial element to this whole thing. So. But appreciate all the work that's been done. A lot of people doing a lot of work, and it's going to be excited to see it move forward.
Thank you. Any further comments before we vote? For the record? Then I'll call the question.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Walker. Yes.
With that, the petition is approved. CU, let me get the number, CU-34-23. Thank you for all those who participated. If members of the public would like to leave, you could do so now as we move to our next piece of business. And please let the record reflect that our president, Barry Clapper, has now rejoined the board for the next hearing.
Okay, we are ready to hear case V-28-23, Hoosier Commons LLC. Can we please have a staff report?
Certainly. My name is Gabriel Holbrow, zoning planner for Bloomington Planning and Transportation Department. I am trying to get to be a co-host on here so I can present. Please bear with me a moment. Can you hear me? Sorry. Let's try this again. Starting from the top, I am Gabriel Holbrow, zoning planner for the Planning and Transportation Department, and I am trying to get status as a co-host in order to share the presentation. Given how long tonight has gone so far, I would like to offer the option for me to simply start without the presentation, or we can wait until we can get it to work.
What was the nature of the technical difficulties before? Was it also with presenting?
The technical difficulties at this moment are completely unrelated to before. I don't know what the problem was before. Maybe no one knows, but it was to do with the audio. This is simply that the host right now is Mr. Rooker, and he's not not responding, and he needs to make me a co-host.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
all-
we're waiting
that's
for
the
Mr.
issue.
Rooker?
Mr. Rooker, are you there?
Yes, I am, Gabriel. Sorry, I did not realize that this was waiting on me.
Oh,
Let me see if I
sorry.
can
Sorry.
fix it.
I sent you a chat, but if you can just make me a co-host in the Zoom, then I can start sharing.
Gabriel, I'm going to have to ask you to speak into the microphone.
Yeah,
'cause
sorry.
It's a little hard.
Awesome. Oh, I'm not just co-host, I'm host now, so. And here we are. This petition is for 1450 North Willis Drive. As you can see on the map, it's in the northwest part of town. It's in the middle of the map on the right, on Willis Drive, just north of 17th, toward the Arlington Valley Mobile Home Community. The area of the site is approximately 1.1 acres. It's currently zoned mixed-use medium scale. Comprehensive plan designation is neighborhood residential. Existing land use is a multifamily dwelling. It's been that way for a few decades. So the petition is for a variance from tree and forest preservation from those standards to legitimize a tree removal that the petitioner conducted in May this year. This is the proposed site plan. It's not super clear at the scale, but the area that is hatched there in the upper left was a closed canopy wooded area that existed on the property. It has now been removed, so the petition is to request approval of that tree clearing. So this is photos from before the tree removal. This is from Willis Drive, approximately southwest of the area, but that's north of where the buildings are on the property. The buildings are to the right, which is farther south, out of the frame of the picture. So there's a little bit of the wooded area. This is a view directly from the west, so looking at the north end of the property where there was a wooded area. This is from inside the property, from the parking lot, looking from the southeast, so looking northward into that small closed canopy wooded area. This is a rough mapping using aerial imagery from earlier in 2000, 2023, or no, this might actually be 2022 imagery. In any case, so it's a relatively small area that was recognized as a closed canopy wooded area observed by staff on February 13th. This is a view shortly after it was removed on May 9th. This is from the southwest. This is a view from the northwest of that same area. A view from the southwest, so along Willis Drive, just a little bit south of the wood area. Another view from around the same area on May 12th, May 16th, directly from the south, from the parking lot, from the southwest. As you can see, the trees are no longer there. In the UDO, there are tree and forest preservation standards requiring retention of existing canopy. In this case, it was a small wooded area that was less than 20% of the total property. So 90% of it would have to be retained under the tree and forest preservation standards. Currently, 0% of it has been retained. Going to staff's proposed findings. The first criteria, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The proposed finding is that the removal of the small closed canopy wooded area and other large healthy trees has been injurious to the public health, ecology, and welfare by removing habitat for plants and animals, reducing shade and local cooling, and eliminating natural carbon sequestration effect of growing trees beyond what would be allowed by the UDO. For the second criterion, that use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be adversely affected. Proposed finding is the removal of the small closed canopy wooded area and other large healthy trees has resulted in substantial adverse impacts to the use and value of surrounding properties by reducing visual buffer, shade, cooling, natural drainage management, and ground stabilization. Finally, the third criterion, that there is a practical difficulty and that the practical difficulty is peculiar to the property in question. Staff's proposed finding is that there are no practical difficulties in the use of property are found. There remains substantial developable area on the property outside the closed canopy wooded area, including the location of the existing multifamily dwelling structure and parking lot. There's nothing peculiar to the property in relation to tree and forest preservation that would require the relief offered by the variance approval. With that, staff's recommendation is that the board adopt the proposed findings and deny the requested variance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel. Petitioner's representative, if you could sign in, please.
Yes. Yes, please. Yes, please.
If you could state your name.
Bill Beggs.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes.
Thank you. Bill Beggs here from Bungren Robertson Law from here in Bloomington on behalf of Hoosier Commons. With me tonight is Ryan Chanley on behalf of Hoosier Commons, Autumn McCoy, and Don Kachark from Smith Design Group. We are here tonight on what we think arises from a misunderstanding, miscommunication with the staff. I think when you hear the background of this story as compared to photos that you saw that were taken when a stop work order was presented, then I think this will make more sense. But more importantly than all of that, Hoosier Commons wants to improve this, and the goal was and still is to improve this. We've brought with us a site plan that is different from what you just saw that we would propose and ask your consideration of. A few different, and I've also brought proposed alternate findings of fact that we think would justify granting this request. In early 2023, so February of 2023, Ryan Chanley, who is not from Bloomington but loves Bloomington, came to town, had an interest in a piece of property that was shown to him by a real estate broker here in town, Autumn McCoy, and was interested in the property. He knew to go to the city, to the planning department to talk to them about what he would need to do in order to improve the property, what could be done on the property. Mr. Chanley will tell you that he walked out of that meeting with a very clear understanding that removal of the trees was permissible. And in fact, he was so convinced of that and so certain of that understanding that he closed on the purchase of the real estate. And so it wasn't as if he already had bought it. It wasn't as if he was, in some difference. He went ahead and purchased it based upon his understanding of what he had been specifically told in his meeting in February. Shortly after that, the work starts. He starts to remove trees, and when we hear more about this area, I think it will make more sense to you as to why he wanted to improve that area. He then was met with a letter from the Planning and Transportation Department, and that has brought us to you tonight. Autumn McCoy is here as well. Autumn was the real estate broker who was involved in the sale of the property to to Hoosier Commons and Mr. Chanley. Autumn will speak to you about a fairly long-standing acquaintance with this property, and in particular with the trees. Autumn had, for whatever reason, occasion to be made aware of previous complaints that had been presented to the city, received by the city on a number of occasions for these very trees because they were unsafe. Autumn has also brought we have some photos that she will talk to you about, but I think what you're going to hear from Autumn is going to be primarily a concern about safety and about the condition of this property, coupled with Mr. Chanley's what he thought was a very clear understanding of the direction that he had gotten when he came to clear this before closing on the transaction, on the purchase of the property. Finally, Mr. Kacharki is here from Smith Design Group, who can answer any questions, but can talk to you because the history of this property is a little different than you might expect. In 2007, a petition was filed, and I think it was 2008, approved for improvement to the property that had certain landscaping requirements imposed upon it. Those never got done. Now, Mr. Chanley and Hoosier Commons were nowhere near this in those days. That's long before they ever came along in 2023. But those were never accomplished. For whatever reason, they never got done, even with the complaints about the condition of the trees at the north end of the site. What Mr. Kucharik is going to talk to you about tonight is Mr. Chanley's desire, as part of improving this site, to bring the site into substantial compliance, not exact, but substantial compliance with the 2008 approval, which never had been accomplished in the prior couple of owners. And so with that, I'm going to stand down and ask Ms. McCoy if she would address you with regard to her understanding of the property, her prior dealings with the property in connection with this request. Thank you.
If you could come to the podium, please.
My name is Autumn McCoy.
I'll let you sign in.
At the time I worked for
I need
Milliken Root.
excuse me one second, I just need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay,
I
thanks.
do. At the time, I worked with Milliken Realty, and I originally in 2019 sold the property to the previous owner. In 2017, a complaint was given to the city 3 different times in January, and I have that complaint that I can give to you about the trees specifically falling on the trailers, on any of the trailers. My first client bought it, and I had implored to him, can we please get these trees down? It was going to be a huge expense. I had received bids on what it would cost. By the time all that happened, he decided to go ahead and sell the property. Then Mr. Chanley came along. I had also mentioned, I had walked through, I took these pictures. I took a video. I was very, very concerned. There's also a picture in there where one of the large, probably a 30-foot tree had fallen in the parking lot and just shattered. Another tree was fallen against one of the other trees, and so my biggest concern is the safety of the folks that were around there. There was about 16 dead trees because of all the vines. You can see all the work. I mean, people had been back there. You saw the tires, you see the fencing. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. And again, I have video, and I was so worried about the folks in the trailer. And so that was the biggest problem for me. And the complaints that had been given to the city, and nothing had been done from the owner prior to my first client. So then I had mentioned to Ryan, I said, these trees are, before he even purchased the property, I said, these trees really got to come down. They are a hazard. There's that tree. I drove up one day because I was there all the time, and I saw that, and I was just shocked. It was just feet from a car right there, falling on a car. So, you know, that's the biggest concern for me as a realtor and my fiduciary responsibility to my clients, then the surrounding community. We have horrible storms in this town, as we all know. All we needed was a good wind gust, and Mr. Chanley would be in a whole different situation other than just being in front of you folks here. There could be a grave injury. So I feel like the trees had to come down, and I have been asking for them to come down for years. That's all I have.
Can you please state your name?
I'm Ryan Chanley.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I'll just tell you the brief story of how I even got here. So I was 96 grad of IU Bloomington. I've been coming back to games for most of my life, and I do real estate and mortgages back in southern Indiana and Sellersburg. So obviously knowing the rental market for college town, I've always been looking for decades to try to find one. And coming up to a weekend of a ball game, I found one listed and contacted Autumn to show it. And everything she told you, basically, she disclosed to me. So there was probably a 60 or 90 day due diligence period before, by writing and getting an accepted contract to closing. So me being a licensed real estate agent in Indiana, I obviously know I need to go into a place and introduce myself and find out what's the lay of the land. Here's what I'm going to be doing. What permits do I need for what I'm doing? I'm not from Bloomington. I was also warned from Autumn to make sure that I go into Bloomington. It's not like another town that you've probably dealt with. So go in there, introduce yourself, and find out what permits you need. So I made an appointment. I met with Gabriel, I think sometime in February. I had three main concerns at that time. One was, could I eventually build on the additional lot where the trees are? Because that was going to determine how much I was willing to pay for that property, because it would be worth more, obviously, if you had land to build. Number two, what permits I need based on the repairs I had to do on the interior. I wanted to find out if I needed a permit to remove the trees, and then also put fencing up along two sides. That way I could stop a lot of foot traffic walking through that property, if that makes sense. So leaving that meeting, I was told that I did not need to have a permit to take down the trees. I was told that I didn't need a permit to put up the fence, and anything inside I didn't. But if I was going to go and start doing grading, at that time I would need a grading permit. So proceeded with the close. That day after closing, I had boots on the ground doing the work inside, had somebody coming down, cutting down the trees. Get about 2 weeks into this, I get a phone call saying, hey, Mr. Chanley, somebody's here telling us that we have to stop doing work because there's a complaint and issue. So at that point, I was trying to make a phone call to them, waited to get this report. I was told, obviously, I could remove the trees from the property that was already down, don't disturb anything else until we get this figured out in the complaint. So got the complaint, then got a hold of Mr. Biggs, and that's where we are. So that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sign it.
Okay, please
Name
state
is
your
Don Kacharik, Smith Design Group.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
So Ryan contacted our firm several months ago about the property, and emailed me kind of all the city information that he received from Gabriel, the notice of violation, a bunch of old plans that were done in, I guess, 2008. And he kind of explained the situation of what had happened, that he removed the trees. Wasn't really quite sure where, what the problem was, and I kind of explained to him that in the ordinance there's a tree canopy requirements, and that was likely it. So we decided, at the time we considered a full compliant landscape plan, but he wishes to, on the north side of the property, which is to the left, to add apartments and increase the density. None of that has gone through planning at this time. It was just some ideas that he wanted to do. So what we kind of talked about replacing some of the trees that had been removed. So what we kind of proposed were, I think, can you slide that? The other way. Yeah, there. I think it's 9 or 10 street trees, and then which are along kind of the bottom there on Willis Drive, and then additional canopy trees on the west side of the parking lot to kind of make up for some of the trees that were removed. So, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Hopefully, the goal here is just to explain to you that this was whether should have or shouldn't have, right or wrong, there was an explanation for this. This is not a case that you undoubtedly see of coming in asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Mr. Chanley thought he was doing what he was allowed to do, and the best evidence that anybody, I think, could give of that is that he closed on a real estate transaction in reliance on that. He didn't, and that was the basis for going forward with the closing. But that aside, we're not trying to leave the property in the condition it was in. Obviously, we didn't want it to be in the condition it was in. And at the back of your packet, of this section of your packet, you'll see the 08 approval. And so what we would like to do as a part of this variance and as a condition for granting this would be to improve the property or consistent with what you see on the screen right now. And to that end, I have prepared alternate findings of fact that, if it's okay, I'll approach and bring up to you.
Thank you.
You're going to read this and you're going to see the thing you haven't heard, and I think Ryan meant to talk to you about and didn't, is what he observed, and actually Autumn was too, what they both observed with regard to activities that were going on this property at the time of this transaction earlier this year. There was very clearly illegal and undesirable activity going on at this site and in this area of the property, and maybe we don't care as much about that in some cases, but this was right next to that behavior. Those activities were immediately next to residential properties to the north and to the east, which would have been the same ones that made the complaints back in 2017 about the condition of the dead trees. So with that, we would respectfully request that the board grant the request based upon the alternate findings of fact that we've submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are to the board for questions of the petitioner and staff. Would somebody like to start?
This question is to the petitioner. What made you believe that you were allowed to cut down the trees when you met with the city? I mean, did you ask the specific question, can I cut down the trees? Am I allowed to cut down the trees? I mean, so what made you believe that you could do it without permission? Yes, please.
If you could please step to the podium.
In our meeting that we had in February, that I had in my testimony, that was one of the things I wanted to know if I needed permits to do so. I asked specifically if I could cut the trees down, and I was told I could without a permit. And that only time I needed a permit is whenever I did grading.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to follow up with that, was the discussion of the percentage of the canopy that could be removed in that conversation at all?
There was no conversation at that time that there was a closed canopy.
Okay, thanks.
And just following up on that, Gabriel, was that meeting with you?
Yes, it was with me.
Okay, could you just please let us know your recollection of that meeting?
Yes, I think Mr. Chanley's recollection of the meeting is basically correct. I would agree with it. The essence of the difference of my recollection is that I believe we briefly touched on the tree and forest preservation standards and mentioned that if there is a closed canopy wooded area, it would have to be, some portion of it would have to be preserved. But at that time, I did not know whether there was a closed canopy wooded area. So I said, if there is, it would have to be preserved. If it's not, it's totally fine to take down the trees, but we'll check it out. So my recollection is leaving it as that part of the question was unanswered. So that's not to contradict anything Mr. Chanley said, but to add that piece of it.
I have one more question. Do you know how many trees that were cut?
If I could, I believe we have staff here as well. Sorry, I'm over here now, sorry. I'm so sorry. Jackie Scanlon, Development Services Manager. We have staff as well who spoke with the actual on-site contractor who was there taking the trees down and for Mr. Chanley, and that person counted them. So we do have a good amount. I don't know, Ms. Burrell, if you want to, if you have that information and you could give that to the board, that'd be useful. And then, of course, if Mr. Chanley has different information, that's fine as well.
Sure. Okay.
Well, I'd like to hear from both sides. So how many trees were there? How many trees are in question, I guess?
Yes, please.
I didn't cut them down, so I would probably defer to see what, and probably agree with them if they've counted them.
Okay.
I don't know, you know what I mean? I knew there was a problem, so I hired a contractor to do that.
Okay.
You have to step to the podium, please.
I counted 17 dead trees.
But how many were alive and well?
There may have been one on the far west side that came out on the sidewalk, but it was so far bent out that limbs had been dropping. That might have been the only live tree. Other than that, they were all taken out by the vines. All the vines had killed that entire little area right there. And that's why it was so dangerous, because even if there would have been 2 live trees in there, I didn't see any live trees, and I had been dealing with this property since 2019. When I sold it the first time, and that was the first time I said, we've got 17 dead trees in here. There was no canopy in that place that I can remember at all.
Okay, thank you.
So let's ask.
Yeah, does staff have an answer for how many we were told?
If you could.
You just go to the podium.
I need to swear Ms. Burrell in.
No, you don't need to swear her in, but.
I don't need to swear in because she's staff. Okay.
Yes, sorry, it's Jennifer Burrell. So from staff visit, for looking at all of the, essentially we do a caliper count. So based on myself and a fellow staff member in engineering, we went out and counted all of the calipers that are present and left from having been essentially all trees removed. And so we counted 101 trunks of various caliper sizes, and we do have inches in diameter across of each caliper. Again, it is not to a very high height because they were all removed. So we had 101. We cannot attest to which ones were not living at that time because the area had been cleared. So that's what we had.
So I want to make sure, so the 101 were just in the area that we're talking about, not the whole area?
The area that was pictured in Gabriel's presentation is the easiest to observe it.
So that's
Those
the
are
whole
staff
north
photos.
side? That's the,
the whole north side, which, so as you could see from earlier photos, maybe I can pull it up again if that's helpful.
yeah, if you could.
It shows their staff photos from our visits.
Looking for, this might be the easiest picture, even though it's not actually, it's not hard, it's not easy to tell what you're looking at here, but you can see that the whole north side of the property is green, and you can tell that there are branches there. But the area that's outlined in green was determined by staff on February 13th to be a small closed canopy wooded area. The part that's to the right up there, there were trees there, including some individual large healthy trees, but also a lot of unhealthy trees, just shrubby stuff, vines, and so on. So the entire area was wooded in some sense, but the area, so the 101 trees includes trees from both areas. So if there were to be a count of how many trees were in the area identified as a closed canopy wooded area, I'm not sure what the number would be, but it would be less than 101, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
And because of the time of year, you weren't able to know what was really live and what was?
So based on the clearing, if you want to go forward in your photos, it is very difficult to tell when a tree has been taken down entirely to its trunk and it has been left. We were called, staff, myself, was called out to the site with reports of this being cleared. By the time staff was able to go to the site to do our portion of basically addressing a complaint and seeing if there's an active violation or not, this was the state of the site. So as you can see, pretty much all of the trees, including the brushes and various piles that they had from clearing the trees, had been removed.
Okay. And there's been no inventory of the remaining trees on the northeast side?
On the northeast side would be where we are staring at. There you go. So all of this is the north side, essentially, is what staff, myself, and an individual from engineering counted that day. As far as anywhere south of essentially the top of the parking lot, no, we were not counting if anything is remaining, if that's what you're asking.
No, I guess I am a little confused.
To say everything north of the parking lot is gone. There are no trees.
Everything north, but so what's the green?
The green was before trees were removed. That was, in staff's determination, a closed canopy wooded area.
Only that area?
Only that area. The other part of the area had trees in it, including some large healthy trees, but it was not closed canopy. And therefore, the tree and forest preservation standards that relate to closed canopy doesn't apply to that.
Got it. Okay. I was not clear. Thank you
That's
for
okay.
clarifying.
If you have anything else,
Okay.
please let me know.
Okay, but everything had been removed? Yeah.
Okay, so all of the trees north of the parking lot are gone. When, Mr. Chamley says he felt like he had the okay to take down whatever trees were removed, but I think it is evidence that staff didn't intend to or send that message because Gabriel went out to the site with Ms. Thompson to look for closed canopy, so that if the conversations continued about this site, we would be able to tell him, these are the trees you have to keep, these are the trees that can go. And Mr. Holbrook can correct me if I'm wrong, but timing-wise, he spoke with the petitioner, he did not give him a direct answer because he wasn't sure, This situation is complicated because we do have the tree preservation rules, but he also has an approved site plan that says he's not going to take down any of these trees. So that's something we were going, an approved grading permit. So that was something we were going to have to suss out with legal about whether or not we are going to use current UDO tree preservation standards or hold him to his approved grading permit. And we hadn't done that. And then we just didn't have any more contact with him. He didn't, we did not realize that he felt the conversation was over. And so then when we got the complaint and went out, they're all gone. So that's why we sent the notice of violation.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But I think that 101
Excuse me, one second. We have to ask you for further comment at this point.
Okay.
And this was a pretty quick time frame, it sounds like.
It was a few months.
Yeah.
Gabriel, I believe they spoke in February. We went out in February, and then we got the complaint in May, I believe.
In May,
Yeah.
right, in May. Okay, okay, okay. Questions, further questions?
This is.
So it's difficult to determine the quality of the area because of the way that things went down. But the initial pictures that you provided of the canopy without greenery was off-season. So is that from your visit to get?
This photo and the others are from February 13th. I visited the site with our senior environmental planner,
Yep.
Linda Thompson, and these are photos. You can see her in the high-vis vest there in the middle of the frame. She's very small. So this is what we observed on February 13th.
So just to understand the timeline here, he comes to visit the city in February. When did you close on the property? April 10th, and then by May, it was all cleared?
Yeah, middle of May.
Yes.
And this was one lot? I heard a reference to two lots, a second lot. It is one lot, correct? Okay. The notice of violation had two remedies. One was to submit a remediation plan, including specifications of number and species of trees to be replanted, or to come and speak to a planner about a variance request. So there is no, so it seems like the petitioner at this point has come forward proposing to plant a number of trees, sort of addressing one of these potential ways to resolve the issue. Does anybody have some feedback on that for us as to what's been, have you seen the site plan?
You're saying feedback on this plan?
Yeah, have you seen that plan?
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen this plan. I believe this is the first time anyone in staff has seen this plan.
Okay.
So if this were submitted as a proposed remediation plan, we would review it. It's it's possible that it would be approved as a remediation plan. It's possible that it would not be approved as a remediation plan. We would have to review.
That's where we are in the process. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I would add to that. So, they're asking you to approve the remediation plan, basically, to approve the variance and say this is what they can put back in. If you choose to follow staff recommendation and deny the variance, we will still work with them on a remediation plan. That will still happen. Something has to happen here. They don't, we haven't had time to analyze it and talk to Ms. Thompson about it. We haven't seen it. So, you can either approve that plan tonight or deny the variance, and we will still work with them on the remediation plan. And we can look at the photos Gabriel has. We can go out, and see if there are still stumps and try to figure out, what has been removed and what should be replaced. Again, as I said, it is a little bit complicated because they have the approved grading permit. that required that all of the trees be saved, even though they don't all meet our tree preservation requirement. So that's just something that we, I think, didn't fully flesh out. I mean, when Gabriel met with them on February 10th and went to the site on February 13th, and then we didn't hear back. So we were prepared to do those things, and just, through misunderstanding or whatever, that didn't happen. We are still prepared to work with them on a remediation if you choose not to approve the variance.
Okay, okay.
Question for Ms. Scanlon. So the grading permit, so it was specified on a grading permit that they had to keep all the trees?
In the previous grading permit, there is, and Mr. Holbride can correct me if I'm wrong, there is, that whole area is basically marked out and says that all of those trees will be retained.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Beggs is right. So that is an old grading permit. It's from 2009. It's the last thing that we have that has an approved site plan.
Yeah, I'm afraid there might be a misunderstanding here. That's from 3 owners ago. That had nothing to do with Hoosier Commons. So I just want to make sure, because your question sounded like you might have thought that Mr. Chanley had obtained that permit. That was from 3 permits ago.
So
or 3 owners ago.
what does it say on his grading permit?
He doesn't have one. He was told he didn't need one. That's the meeting in February.
I thought the meeting in February, he didn't need a permit to cut trees. That grading permit, he was going to need it, correct?
Right.
No. So that's what I'm trying to clear up. The grading permit that you heard Ms. Scanlon reference a couple times is from 2010 that was never mentioned or known about. That only got discovered after May, when this notice of violation came out. Nobody knew about a grading permit. I suspect nobody knew that there'd been complaints about the trees being dead and asking the trees to be cut down either. But that grading permit never came up because nobody knew about it, planning staff nor Hoosier Commons.
But Mr. Chamley did testify, and so you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that he is saying that Gabriel was not clear with him about the trees, but that it was clear that if he wanted to move dirt, he needed to get a grading permit. So he knows that he needed one at some point, and he does not have one yet. I just want to be clear, because you were saying that he said he knew he needed a grading permit. He did say that. He felt that the work he was doing related to the trees, even though you see the pictures and it's obviously earth movement, was not grading permit related, that they were separate in his mind.
Yeah, and we continue to disagree. I mean, yes, the removal of trees created that condition that you see, but we don't agree that caused the movement of earth. And Mr. Chanley certainly didn't think that, and particularly based on what he'd been told when he left the Showers building.
Further questions? Okay. Then we are to the public. Is there anybody here this evening who would like to speak to this petitioner, or somebody who is online?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to speak, you can raise your virtual hand or send me a message. Hold on, see, I have one chat. Oh, nope, I don't have anything for this.
Nobody? Okay. And there's no one here in chambers, so then we are back to the petitioner. I don't know how much time they have remaining.
About.
Okay, if there's any final comments you'd like to share at this time?
I think the point you raised is the one I'd like to speak to, is the 2 options. We're trying to give you both. We request the variance be granted. We think we have come forward with a proposal, a remediation plan that would take the property back to where it should have been had whoever the owner was in 2008 done what they were approved to do, and so that's our request to you. And we would think that would get it'd get the property where it should have been, and it would get the area improved for purposes of dead trees, safety issues, neighborhood concerns, illegal criminal activity in the area, and we think it's an improvement to the site. So with that, we'd respectfully request your approval.
Okay.
But based on the condition of what we submitted site plan-wise.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So we are back to the board for further discussion and/or action. Well, obviously, we need to get to some action. Any further questions or
Is the material difference here that if we approve the variance, that they could just move forward, we could trust that they would add the plantings that were in the site plan and move forward? Or if we deny it, then they would have to work with you. And you would, with your experts that understand forestry and other things, you would evaluate what is actually needed and work with them and forward. Is that the difference?
That's correct. I would add, you can impose conditions based on findings. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do an approval that's a blank check, right? Because based on findings, conditions can be made on the approval. Does that make sense?
right? So we can. It's an option for us to adopt alternate findings, and then we could include a condition of approval or multiple conditions of approval that as to what we want to see happen. That's one way to go and grant a variance in this case. We can deny the variance, and in which case the petitioner would still have to work with staff to work out a resolution, correct? Yeah. So either way, it's going to get resolved. I will say that I don't feel qualified to evaluate the proposals that's put forward. I appreciate that you are thinking in that direction, but there's just a lot of expertise that goes into deciding what works with the code and what is, how this is weighed and what's looked at in terms of the quality of what goes there and the quantity and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I feel. So, and I'm just wondering, it's typically, so this is interesting because oftentimes it's the third criteria, which is the most difficult one for us to meet. But whereas I think there is some real question as to the health of the trees that were there. So I could see we could craft, some alternate findings.
I would agree with that. I think the happy medium, the middle ground is their willingness, the petitioner's willingness to work. I think there's been some real miscommunication in this whole thing. I think that's unfortunate. But I think if we do an approval of the variance with the condition that they work with the city, we've done that many times before with petitioners, to get it back to remediate it. You already said you could put 10 new trees up per your plan. If there's more potentially required by the city based on the canopy needed, if you have a continued willingness to do it, to get this done, to me, that's the middle ground there, is to approve with the condition of working with the city staff on a remediation plan.
Are you uncomfortable approving, granting this? There are several things that are not adding up. A few things that one of the things that the petitioner has mentioned is that he wants to put apartments there. So are we clearing the land so we are ready to put apartments there? Obviously, he would have to do a plat division, and it might not work. This might not be approved down the road. Typically, when you purchase a property, you will go and you would bring a forester or somebody that understands tree. It doesn't need to be an expert. And you would preserve the trees that are there for, and yes, the ones that are dangerous and fallen and shrub, yeah, that can be, could be cleaned out. But the photos to me look like somebody came and just took them all down. Just cleared the whole thing with no regard to size of the trees. I see in the photos, I have the photos in front of me, some of the trunks are pretty large and some are just nothing, little scrubby things. I understand all the arguments about safety. Safety not only with the trees might fall on the property, adjacent to property, but also with people loitering or throwing things in there. So there's different, I'm not feeling very convinced that this was not an attempt to clear this whole land to build something on top of it. And not, you know, an attempt for safety. So that's where I am at this point.
Yeah, I see all of that, and I agree with what you raised. I don't feel qualified. I don't know what the real percentage of quality canopy cover was beforehand. The pictures to me look like quite a bit of stuff was alive. And so I would like to see mitigation go through the city, then be able to really assess and work with you and determine what the best fix is. If it needed grading, permitting, we're talking about erosion issues and other environmental health and quality issues. And so I'd like to respect the policies that are in place and have our experts be able to work with you to define the best solution. That's where I'm at right now.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah. Okay. I motion to deny V-28-23 based on the proposed findings from the city. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think I'm on the other side of this because I feel like while the intention may be long-term development, which is well within the petitioner's ability, if it's gone through the city processes, I feel like the miscommunication and also the safety issues, like the longstanding things that have come before this, you know, kind of sets a precedence that they were trying to do some improvement. Safety was in mind, even if development was in mind as well. Again, if it's approved in the condition is they work with the city, we're still getting the expert input of the city staff on a remediation plan that would have to be put together with the petitioner. So to me, the petitioner's willingness to already plant back some more trees, doing that with the city and getting it done, I mean, that seems like a way forward versus just letting, you know, just puts it at a standstill, in my opinion.
I disagree. I don't think putting back on the city for them to work on the plan together to mitigate what was done, that is a problem. Plus, we are the defenders of the UDO. This is where we sit to defend the UDO. And every petition that comes in front of us, we need to look at the UDO. Does it go with the UDO? Does it go against? Does it go for the UDO? Miscommunications aside, the UDO is a public document that is available online at any time. Is it hard to read? Yes. I have a hard time reading it. The pagination is complicated. However, if you have issues, you go ask. I understand he approached them and asked the questions, but maybe not all the intent and questions were asking at the correct time and the answers were not given. Yet the burden is on us as the owners to to follow the law. So in that case, that's why I am proposing the denial.
I will say, I just don't know, the conditions or the criteria for a variance are pretty high bar, and while I understand that there's been, these trees that are in questionable health, I just don't know, I'm not sure if that rises to the level of a variance for this amount of tree removal. I would feel like we would need a lot more documentation of the safety concerns around these trees in order to really provide those kinds of findings with a lot of teeth. So it's always that third one that's kind of more troublesome to define, and so that's where I feel like discomfort in promoting a variance for this. And how many square feet does that area represent? Do we have a sense?
Let me find that.
I mean,
Sorry, I don't have it at my fingertips, but
'cause I thought
less than 1,000 square feet.
Pardon?
Less than 1,000 square feet.
Less than 1,000 square feet. Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there aren't any further comments, I think we'll vote. I have a second. I have a motion. So the motion is for denial. So a vote of yes is to deny the variance. Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Ballard,
No.
Burrell.
Yes.
Okay. So the variance is denied. Good luck, and I'm sure it'll get resolved. Thank you. So we are ready. Are the petitioner's representatives here for?
They're on Zoom.
Oh, they're on Zoom.
I believe so. Let me double check. Who is messaging Zoom? Oh, yes, she is. They are here.
They're
Yeah.
here. Okay,
Yep.
wonderful, wonderful.
Great.
Okay, so we are ready to proceed with case AA-37-23, Keith and Karen Swedo?
I'm not positive, but we'll find out. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let me move my screen here. So this is an administrative appeal for a notice of violation that was sent for the property at 1207 West Cottage Grove Avenue. You can see here on the west side. It is a property that has a single-family house and is currently zoned residential small lot, or R3 zoning district, and is about 0.16 acres. So the administrative appeal is to a notice of violation letter, a warning letter, that was sent to the property owner on June 22nd, 2023. And the notice of violation was for a fence forward of the front building wall exceeding 4 feet in height. So in the Unified Development Ordinance in Chapter 4, specifically Section 20.04.080N in the landscaping, buffering, and fences section under fences and walls, for interior lots, which this is because it's not on a corner and is not a through lot, fence and wall height behind the front building wall of the primary structure, fences and walls shall not exceed a combined height of 8 feet, except as provided in a subsection that's mentioned there that's related to food production. But the second note here says, forward of the front building wall of the primary structure, fences and walls shall not exceed 4 feet in height. So this is an aerial image. I believe this is 2019, so you could it was the clearest one where you could see where the house is located. So this is the house here. It sits back a small ways from the right-of-way and road. And then there is a fence immediately adjacent to the roadway. This is a Google Maps Street View from 2014. And that fence is still there, so there's an existing picket fence, and then you can see the house on this property is here, and then the one on the right is the neighboring house. So the department received a complaint that a fence in excess of 4 feet in front of the building, the front building wall of the house, had been installed on this property. You can see here above the cloth that the petitioner added posts and then new material to extend the height of their existing fence. It spans the entirety of the fence, wraps around on 3 sides, and obviously does not comply with the section of the UDO that I referenced previously. When staff visited the site, they observed the fence that didn't meet requirements. That was on June 8th of 2023, and then a notice of violation was sent on June 22nd, referencing that date and the violation, and the petitioner is appealing that notice. And because it's administrative appeal, we don't make a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals. But I can answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, petitioners, if somebody could please state their name, and I will swear you in.
You should, if you can speak, you should be unmuted. We can't hear you. They do appear to be unmuted, so I don't know if they might be able to check something on their computer. Hold on. Go back. It's not even registering, like it's not giving us a little sound motion, that it's registering on your end as a microphone. I can send you the call-in information as well, or I think that's in the, no, I can send you the call-in information. Oops. Let me send them the call-in information in case that would be easier, and then we'll. Okay. Okay, I just sent the call-in numbers to Karen's email address, so maybe we'll wait a second and see if that helps. You use the same meeting ID number, and I'll put it in the chat. Here we go. Thank you, Gabriel. You should be able to unmute. Oh, there you go. We can hear you.
Oh, there you go. We can hear you. Hello. Hello.
Oops.
Sorry about all that.
I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is that, okay. So could you please state your name?
This is Karen Sweeto.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes to make your case.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for hearing me out. My submission to the meeting packet pretty much says it all. So in the interest of time, I won't really repeat it here, only to summarize and say that according to the evidence provided, the privacy screen on my property provides numerous benefits and solves numerous issues for myself and the neighbors, including improvements to the privacy and therefore the safety and security, as well as improvements to the landscaping, maintenance requirements, curb appeal, and neighborhood satisfaction. Before, it was just a bunch of overgrown brush that really didn't do much. There have been a lot of issues of theft, trespassing, peeping, vandalism, all kinds of stuff in the neighborhood. Lots of the neighbors, they have since installed all kinds of security measures, such as cameras, security systems, floodlights, tall wooden fences, leaving the dogs out to bark and such. Our neighborhood is directly across from a government development site where government housing is provided for people, as well as a community kitchen. So we have all kinds of traffic. I won't go too much into that. It's kind of similar to a lot of what the other groups were talking about, just the kind of people that end up being around the neighborhood. Multiple issues have been reported to the Bloomington Police Department by myself and the neighbors, but we've really been able to have zero resolution just because they haven't been able to find the violators, so nothing was able to be done for us. So all of that, meanwhile, no issues have been identified by the planning department. The only point of contention is that the fabric, the privacy screen, is in excess of 4 feet forward of the front building wall. But to that point, so are a considerable amount of other fencing structures in the area, including but not limited to 12 in the immediate neighborhood. I provided a map from the GIS where I labeled all of the lots and their addresses, which had fences that forward of the front building wall that exceeded 4 feet in height. Yes, that is all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are to the board for questions of the petitioner and of staff. Does anybody have any questions?
So if I understand correctly, the extension of the fence is 4 feet, correct?
So the maximum height of a fence is
Yes.
4 feet. They have, we did not measure it, but they submitted that the picket fence is 3 feet tall, and then they've extended, obviously, more than 1 foot taller than that. So everything taller than 4 feet is not compliant.
Is that because it's in front of the house?
Correct.
Facing the street?
Yep.
And a certain distance from the road?
Right, so any fence that's built between the house and the road, so this is not for corner lots, but for interior lots like this, any fence that's built between the house and the road can only be 4 feet tall. We put in, a number of years ago, some regulations for food production, so there are some things that allow slightly larger fences with open tops, but other than that, every fence can't be taller than 4 feet. And so they did submit a number of other fences in the neighborhood, which is something we often see with fence discussions. A lot of them are very old, and also, we did receive a complaint. It was lodged by a member of the HAND department, Housing and Neighborhood Development, because they were visiting this site for a different complaint. And when they saw the fence, they just contacted our enforcement planner and said, is this right? Are they allowed to do this? And so then we had to inspect and then send the notice of violation. So as we say, if we receive complaints about the other fences, we will run them down, but this one is clearly not pre-existing because we have pictures of, recent pictures of before they put it up. So this one's clearly in violation.
Now, it seems that it's a temporary situation. I mean, is it fabric that wraps around posts or?
I think we don't take that into account, right? So the posts are, wooden posts that they've sunk in some way. I mean, you can see them sticking out, and they've affixed it, and, they haven't made any sort of argument that they're planning to take it down. Material-wise, we don't, for us, it's a fence. It's operating as a fence, and so that's how the code sees it. It doesn't see it differently because it is fabric.
Okay, thank you.
Could somebody from staff just speak to the ordinance and why we've adopted as a city, why we've trended away from having tall fences in front yards?
Sure. So there's a lot of reasons. I'll just give a few. It's interesting, to hear the kind of other side where the benefits of that type of privacy fence allows you to have privacy on your side. That can cause issues for people on the other side where of comfort when we have pedestrians or vehicles or whatever driving along frontages of all tall fences. We don't prefer that type of design. We also live in a college town. And though this type of regulation is common in zoning codes, I think it's especially important in a place like here, where there is concern about sometimes over occupancy or overuse of properties outside of the bounds of what might be typical in certain neighborhoods, and not allowing large privacy fences in your front yard keeps some of those activities in the back, where it's less, again, maybe obtrusive for those people using the public space that's immediately adjacent. And I think it's also just aesthetics of having typical design that you can expect that if someone's going to have a fence design or something in the front, you'll still be able to see the property and what lies beyond. And those are just pretty common, I would say, zoning code. They are common in other zoning codes, and those are some of the things that we have discussed. Again, when we also changed the rules to allow for if you live on a corner lot to have some acknowledgement by the code that one of your sides isn't a front for you functionally, and so we have changed the code to allow for taller fences on those sides in some situations, or in all situations, but with some amended design standards to still have that interface feel safe and comfortable for people on the street. But yeah, it's been a part of our code for some time that the expectation is that the shorter fences improve the interface between the public and private there at the edge of your property.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions at this time? Okay, then we are to the public. If there is anybody in chambers or on Zoom who would like to speak to this petition, this is your time.
If you are not the petitioner and you are on Zoom and would like to speak to the petition, you can send a message to the host or raise your virtual hand. I don't see anything.
Okay. Then we are back to the petitioner for any final comments.
You should be able to unmute, Karen.
Hello.
You might have to mute your computer. Hold on. There you go, I think.
Hello?
We can hear you, but you have an echo.
How's this?
That's better. Do you have anything additional to add?
I guess I would just like to say it is quite different I put it up not knowing that it would be a fence. I put it up buying it as a privacy screen, getting the idea from privacy screens, thinking it would be a privacy screen. Had I gone with the traditional wood privacy fence kind of method, I would have thought permits and making sure that it was allowed and everything. But since it was just some fabric, I thought it was a privacy screen, not necessarily a fence. I didn't really think to look much into it. So I'm hoping it will be okay because of the benefits it provides, and there aren't really any drawbacks I can see it providing. I understand what Jackie was saying about why it makes sense in zoning codes and stuff like that. I feel like just with my lot, it might be a little bit different considering the neighborhood that I'm in. And none of the neighbors have expressed any kind of grief with it. They've stopped me in the street to be like, I like it. And my direct neighbors across the road, they have started hanging out in their front yard again. Now that we all have privacy, they leave their windows and their blinds open again now. So yeah, I guess that's it. I didn't really know I was breaking any rules when I put it up, and I would love to keep it up. If not, I'm interested in working with you guys and discussing what is a acceptable method of increasing the privacy, security, and buffer on my property in the front yard there. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you very much. Thank you much. So we're back to the board for action. I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll make a motion. So I'll move to deny the administrative appeal of case AA-37-23.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. I just want to make a few comments. I thank you very much for your comments. Mrs. Swedo, or Karen Swedo, thank you very much for your comments. I really, it's hard to hear that people don't feel safe in their yards. I think that's a big issue. And so maybe there are ways that we can think creatively as a community to afford people more privacy in their front yards, especially when your house is set back so far from the front yard. So I just want to recognize that how we vote tonight is in no way not recognizing, we recognize what you're saying to us, and so that's, and we appreciate your last comments, especially after hearing kind of why, as a community, our regulations are the way they are. So I just wanted to say that before we vote. But of course, putting up anything that's solid has the effect of a full privacy fence. So the actual material is sort of immaterial at this point. In this case. Does anybody else have any additional comments?
Just to add to that it makes sense that you wouldn't have thought of that nuance as you were trying to just to say that to the petitioner that it makes sense that you wouldn't have thought of this particular ordinance or code when you were trying to create an environment in your front yard that was beneficial. So as an individual matter, it makes sense, and we're sorry that you're having that experience, but as a policy matter, the city explained the reason why the UDO is here, and that's our function. And so,
I guess for the petitioner, I guess try to explore an idea that will help you feel safe with the city. Maybe send them an email or a phone call or some communication of what can be put in your front yard that will act as a screen, so you don't, that you feel a little safer. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. So just to summarize, that the vote is to deny the administrative appeal. So a vote of yes is for denial.
All right. Walker?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Clapper.
Okay, yes. The appeal is denied. Yes.
We have to, something we haven't done before that we're going to start doing now is immediately adopt findings for administrative appeals. So
Oh, we have
we'll
to-
prepare findings both ways, and then, and based on your conversation. I will put that up.
Okay.
Our proposed findings, and Mr. Rooker, you can correct me if I've said anything oddly.
Okay.
And then you can vote to adopt them, or you can amend them, or, oh,
Okay.
sorry, they're so tiny.
Okay. So do you want to read them?
Sure. So our proposed findings of fact are: the petitioner installed a fence that is greater than 4 feet between the front building wall and the right-of-way. That fence was observed and photographed by city staff on June 8th, 2023. A notice of violation was sent June 22nd of 2023. As a result, the fence height does not comply with UDO section 20.04.080N.
Okay, thank you. So do we need to do anything since we voted?
I think so. You will vote on these as well. So it's different with our other types of petitions. We have finding guides in the UDO to answer, but this is more of just like stating what the facts are of how you got to the resolution.
Okay.
So again, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think someone will move to adopt the proposed findings or amend them or whatever you want to do, and then take a vote.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move to, approve the findings of fact by staff.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We're ready for a vote?
Ballard,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Clapper,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is it for this evening. Thank you. We are adjourned.